All right, so joining me now is Alex Brooks. Alex is currently a scout for the Chicago Blackhawks, but also was a teammate of mine at the University of Wisconsin. He went on to become an All American, and later his first step into pro hockey was to go play in Finland in the top league there called the SM Liga. Came back and played. Brooksy, what were you? 7 years with Peoria in the American Hockey League, or 5 years, I think it
Ye
was.
yeah, played 5 years in New Jersey Devils organization, and then bounced around the last 5 years of my
Yeah,
career in Sweden, Finland, and a little bit of the NHL, mostly
y-
in the AHL.
yeah. Well, I mean, you did get your stint with the New Jersey Devils in the NHL, so you did reach the top of the mountain. Uh, obviously didn't get the opportunity to stay there as long as you wanted as a player, but now you're widely known as one of the top scouts in the NHL. When you look at that career, when you look at the grind that you went through to get to that top of the mountain as a player, when you self-reflect, what are the first things that come to mind?
Certainly, on top of it was the belief system that you have in yourself, and then a lot of it comes back once you get into that pro level. It comes into like this consistency level, um, which a lot of attention put on like the right habits and the right details, which kind of separated players, especially at that high level. Just if their consistency of doing the right thing for the coach on the NHL level by doing the having the right habits and right details, put those players in a better spot to stick in the NHL. And I think those were topics that it took a while for me to figure out. Through high school, through junior hockey, and you get into the pros. They really are. They're focusing on those details, the techniques, the habits, and fine tuning like these little nuances to make you a better player.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you think it was? Obviously you're a great college player. You're a long time in the American Hockey League and kind of just right on the cusp of pushing through. What do you think was that moment that did it for you, or how did you see yourself mature as a player throughout the years, and what do you wish you had learned maybe earlier?
certainly, one of the biggest years of my development. So I went to the huge program at University of Wisconsin. It's one of the prestigious hockey programs in NCAA, and we're given all these resources there, to be a better player, be a better student. And it was just sometimes we were so caught up in being a Badger hockey player, we didn't really stop and look around.
Mm.
So my first year playing pro, I was an undrafted player, graduated Wisconsin, didn't really have much opportunity to play after. So I was starting from ground zero in order to kind of work my way up. I had an opportunity to try out for Jokerit Helsinki in Finland, which was the SM League at the time. It was the top. It was at that time one of the top leagues in Europe, and one of the and Jokerit Helsinki was kind of like at that time, like kind of like Manchester United of the European Hockey League. Like they're one of the top European hockey
Yeah.
teams in all of Europe, and then the KHL came in later, which kind of took a lot of shifted a lot of the strength of hockey players move there. But it was there where you know you're introduced to kind of like, and I wasn't saying we weren't at Wisconsin, but it was at a whole nother level. You're introduced to living as a pro. Like
Yeah.
like you're working out beforehand. You didn't you did like quick feet drills, plyometrics before practice, went on the ice, and then you went and lifted. You know,
Yeah.
we did that at Wisconsin, but it was kind of a couple steps back where we thought that was that was as high as you could get at that time. Then when you turn pro, the growth and development shifted, and that was kind of my eye opener. Um, there, it was figuring out how to manage, um, you know, a lot of the pressure of staying in the lineup. Where in college you didn't really have that. The pro level, you had to manage how you dealt with your mistakes. You had to show up with the right attitude every day, and you were always, you're figuring out what it took to get better. And it was a lot of this was like I always had, like, I was always a hardworking player, so that
Mhm.
was like my foundation. But it was getting introduced to the, how to handle different scenarios at that point, and that mental growth from living in another country, and also finding that growth of becoming a hockey player at the same time. It kind of strengthened my belief in myself, um, and that I could get through that scenario for the first time in a different country, foreign country.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the true growth for me. My mindset changed. Uh, I went into the situation not on an NHL radar. I finished the year in Jokerit, Helsinki with a couple NHL contract offers. So as I'm saying, it started ground zero. It took me several months of figuring out what to be, and a lot of it was from the coach instilling these details and always having his thumb on the players. And it was that year which really shifted my belief system myself, and it allowed me to have like a different confidence, um, in terms of added composure. uh, I was this foundation shift of where I was as a player.
Right. Wow, that's interesting. You said something too, early on, that about being present, and I think this is a mistake that a lot of players make. I certainly made it, and it's when you are in a place, whether you're playing, junior hockey, like you were in the USHL or I was in the BCHL, and then all of a sudden you're at this amazing program at the University of Wisconsin, and then you move on and you're playing pro, and it always seems like you want to be somewhere where you're not, right? You always want to be at that next level, and you sometimes don't stop and enjoy and appreciate where you are. And uh, and I think when you can start doing that as a player and focus on, hey, I am here right now. The only thing I need to do is focus on being good where I'm at right now, and the rest of the stuff starts taking care of itself. And that was a massive lesson for me. And it sounds like you were learning that as well.
Yeah, no question. That was exactly in Helsinki. That was there wasn't many distractions at school. You have a lot of distractions. You got to learn how to manage those. But now we're taking it a whole nother level. As a pro, the focus is changed by all the players in that lineup. They take things more serious. It's now a job. You're getting paid for it. So you know, you're if you're in that moment, you're not, you're enjoying what it is. We've both played with those negative teammates that are complaining about what city they're living in, or complaining about the meal, or little things like that that really shouldn't matter, but that can leak into their on ice product, or leak into their um, just how they manage themselves away from the rink.
Right.
It's like that positive mindset of just handling what's there, focusing on what you can do in that 2 hour window, 3 hour window, and then good things, good results will happen if you are. And it comes back to these details and habits. If you're doing things the right way, good things are going to happen at some point.
Yeah. Along your journey, who, I'm sure there was a ton of players that, impressed you, but is there anybody that comes to mind that, really stopped you in your tracks? You thought, wow, this person is impressive and is going to go somewhere.
Um, yes. I was fortunate enough to play with Zach Parisi, his rookie year, and it was the lockout season. It was I forget the year, but he was a rookie, and there was a game we played. We lost. I don't know. I don't remember the score, 3-1 or something like that. Everyone gets undressed. And it was just me and him in the locker room, and he was kind of upset with himself. And I walk over to him, sit down next to him. So, hey, what's going on here, right? And he's like, I didn't have a great game, didn't score, you know, but he did have a great game. He competed hard. He was always on the puck, always around the net, uh, playing that same style that he's played his whole NHL career. But he added this extra pressure on him because he wanted to be the difference maker. He wanted to score the goal to be the difference maker.
Mm.
And that's always been a part of his fabric as as a player. It was instilled in him as a younger player. He's all through his career. Now he's in his 30s, and you can still see he has that work and drive and competitiveness to be a difference maker. Even now, he was one of the guys that stood out. When I was in the pro level, where you could see he had something in him, and it was this willingness to do whatever it took to score goals. And he didn't score a lot. He scored some pretty goals, but a lot of his goals were around the net, with second, third, fourth effort goals. That was the most impressive thing. Like he wanted to do the work, and he wanted to get into the dirty areas and be a difference maker there.
Yeah. I would imagine too, along the journey, you've seen players that had all the talent in the world, but couldn't piece it together and just didn't make it because they couldn't figure out as you call the details and be that everyday player.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those because
Yeah.
they come into, you know, even in major, junior, NCAA at the pro level, they can get caught up in things that they shouldn't be spending their time on or focusing on.
Yeah.
Like there were some guys that would just go to practice just to be at practice because they enjoyed the lifestyle of hockey, going to grab lunch with the guys after, or, you know, playing video games all day. They enjoyed that, or even the nightlife. But it was those guys, they just didn't have that willingness to do a little bit extra, which is what it took along the way to climb from, junior A to major junior college, and then make that jump from to the pro levels. You always had to do a little bit extra and focus on, and you come back to it again, the details and the right habits, which end up separating a lot of people
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a saying that a coach used to, a guy named Troy Ward, who coached in the American League and college hockey, and he used to always say, "Details build empires." And it's a common saying, but it's so true. It's so true. I mean, it's the details that you put in every single day that ultimately become the difference maker and give you an opportunity. Doesn't guarantee success all the time, but it gives you the chance to be successful.
Yes, agreed.
You know. Okay, so you move on to your scouting career. Now, I mean, you watch thousands of games. You've seen every type of players. You've seen players, come and go and be impact and different roles that they play. And what are some of the main lessons that now, 10 years into a scouting career, that you may not have thought about in the beginning when you jumped into this evaluating players?
Yeah, it was that was one of those things. It's like a slow build. The more times you watch these games, and you always appreciate the skilled player, the the hardworking players. Then you you're peeling back these layers on all these players, and you stumble on the mental side of it and the character that some guys can show through their play. I can use like Mark Giordano of the Flames. His play shows high end character because he's one of the higher end NHL defenders, but he's doing these little things, blocking shots, sticking up for his teammates, helping his teammates, coaching his, younger players on his team. He's doing these little things that are helping his team grow. And that's like that high character aspect that is touched on and talked about a lot. And that's an imperative trait that all NHL teams, all major sport teams are looking at. And then you can shift down again, and it comes to this, we a lot of us talk about body language like throughout the game. Everyone's looking for that shoulder back approach player that's never discouraged. If they're in that crunch time or critical moments, they find a way to offer that positive play at that time.
Hmm.
Or are they that player, if they get a bad pass, they whip their head back, because that's taken a negative contagious approach on your roster. So that is a key aspect I think a lot of teams focus on, is getting that off ice character, what they are, and then that on ice body language component that you can pick up pretty quick when you're at games. And those are the players that you want on your team. They have that they're never bothered in any situation. They're comfortable in their environment. They're comfortable in themselves. They have that mindset and mental toughness, that they're never bothered if a game's where it should be or where it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And that those are two components I think that are, growing up, you just kind of play, you play and work hard, and then in this lifestyle as a scout, you're trying to dissect a player a lot more,
Yeah.
than before.
You mentioned something early on too that, in I guess we're living in a world full of, social media and Instagram, and we're seeing all these different highlight reel goals, and everybody wants to be the skills guy. But you mentioned earlier that finding your identity and having your role, and understanding that a team is full of different needs, and there's different roles that you're obviously always looking for, that are the makeup, or as you said, the fabric of a championship team. And I think understanding your role, who you are, and just playing that role really, really well can get you far. An example would be, I remember sitting with Jim Nill, and he would talk about just defensemen. Just make that first pass. If you could just make that first pass really, really good, you put yourself in a situation where a lot of teams would want you, right? So, I'd be interested in getting your take on that.
Yes, I mean that is one of those. Lou Lamoriello used to always talk about the hockey team as an orchestra. The trumpets need a their song, the violinists over here need to do their part, and if all those instruments are not buying in, the music's going to be terrible. But when they all buy in at that moment, you're getting fantastic music, fantastic songs. So and that analogy is you find what there's a lot. Some people are better at other things, than others. So hopefully your coach will explain that to you. You bring your strengths to the table. You bring your strengths to the table. It gives you a diverse skill set in your team, but it balances out the strength of your team if you can have different skill sets all over, and that's comes down to understanding what you are and what's expected of you.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of that's communication from your coach, and understanding what you need to do to help this team, and then finding that just willingness to be a good teammate. And it comes back to that character aspect where You know, if a guy's comfortable in their skin being the fourth line chip and chase winger, that's a very important piece to an NHL Stanley Cup team.
Yeah.
Just as much as having, you know, a guy like Patrick Kane who's flashy and making these high end plays, but that guy down the fourth line is going to be just as important
Yeah.
when you're winning those games.
All right. So last question for you. If you were able to sit down at a dinner table and across from you is young Alex Brooks, pre-University of Wisconsin, so Green Bay Gamblers, USHL, Alex Brooks, raw,
Yeah.
full of energy. What's the one piece of advice you'd give him?
I would. Nothing good happens after midnight. Would be number one.
Yeah.
Then after that, you know what? I really struggled with. You know, I really put a lot of pressure on myself with mistakes. I didn't handle mistakes well. I put a lot of pressure on not making mistakes because I felt like that hurt my team. And it took me, you know, doing this job to figure out it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay because that means you're challenging yourself, you're challenging the game. And it was one of those things. If I could go back, I'd say, hey, and I spent a lot of time. I had a lot of sleepless nights. If I had a bad game, I didn't play well. I would put a lot of pressure on myself, and I would always end up taking the game home with me, and it would add weight to me. Um, it took me about 8 years until one of my equipment managers, you know, came up and told me, he goes, "Hey man, just go play, just go play." And I had about 2 more years left in my career, and those are kind of the two, just kind of the two best years I had because I was floating because I didn't put that pressure on. I wanted to enjoy these last couple of years of playing. I stopped like hanging on my mistakes like I did earlier in my career and through college, and it made just a massive difference.
Yeah.
And those are the guys. Those are the guys that in the NHL now we're looking for these guys. You know, we're looking for these guys that can make a mistake,
Yeah.
and it doesn't change their game. They don't gloat on it. And that would be the message I would send. I would try to prep myself to handle those mistakes, a bad pass, or if I blow my defensive coverage, because it kind of held my game and playback because I would play so safe. I was almost, you know, I wouldn't have a good gap defensively. Wouldn't make many puck plays because I'd be so worried about making a mistake. I would just chip the puck off the glass,
Yeah.
which isn't fun for a forward to do because they're chasing that puck now. Or my gap would be so bad that, you know, the guy would come down his wing and get a shot, you know, inside the dots. So it was putting pressure on my goaltender to make a save. So, you know, that was one thing. If I could, and it was a hindrance for me. I think that would be just learning how to handle those mistakes better and
Yeah.
having better composure and poise and calmness with those.
Yeah. No, I think that sums up things for me as well, which is, you know, hey, you got the work ethic. Just trust the process, work hard, but don't be so hard on yourself. And I think that goes a long way. But Brooksy, can't thank you enough. You're one of the best in the business. One of the nicest people too I've ever been around. So can't thank you enough for your time, and appreciate all your wisdom that you're sharing with people.
Thanks, Val. It's always great chatting with you.
All right, buddy. See ya.
Bye bye.